Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here at our July museum show. I'm really excited to be gathering again together to celebrate art, to celebrate community, and to spend time today in a salon-style museum show with Curator Shiloh Sophia and Musea Co-Founder Jonathan McCloud, who are going to be speaking to us about the matriarchal art lineage that is foundational to musea and intentional creativity, and are going to be sharing with us some of the pieces of art in the permanent collection, and also having some time with special guests here today. We have Lavender Grace, who will be sharing some drum song with us, and also the wonderful Cosmic Cowgirl, Mary MacDonald, Christella Mack. All of us are here together in circle. We are so grateful for your presence and for spending time with us at the museum this afternoon. So before we get started, I just invite you to, as we say, land in the space in your body, into your breath, and get ready to enjoy some time in the space of art and community. And with that, I would love to call forward Shiloh and Jonathan to share with us.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fabric of a matriarchal lineage. I'm Shiloh Sophia, and here's my husband, Jonathan. Here we are together. Hi, so good to see all of you. Thank you so much for coming to be with us. It's a beautiful day here at Musea, isn't it?
It really is. You know, it's this is the time of year when it goes basically back and forth between just right and you could fry an egg outside. So today is not a fry an egg outside day. It's really very pleasant and nice and bright and sunny. So we've had some wonderful visitors here in the studio this morning, and always busy, even though we're not, open to as many people as we'd like to see under normal circumstances. We have had some really great opportunities. As you can see, I'm wearing my sort of chef coat for the day, which is my uniform of the day because we prepared a meal for our guests here today. And it's great. We're having a wonderful time, and it's really lovely to meet with all of you in this little less formal, setting in a salon style environment. So, yeah.
So we just
wish
want
we
to
were all in
welcome
the room.
you. I know. I wish you were all here. Can we all pretend that we're all here? Well, I wanted to share this time with you because we really are experimenting with something new. And as the author and activist Alice Walker says to us, they just can't stop us. And so I feel like that with our mighty little museum here, they just can't stop us from doing it our way. And one of the things that makes a museum is a permanent collection. And by golly, we got one.
We've got one. I am looking at it in every direction. Trust me, it is right here.
So I just want to...
You've seen this, probably, this thing.
That's Mama's painting.
That's part of it.
We'll get into our show and tell soon, but I just wanted to welcome each one of you here. And I feel like it's important for us to tell the stories of how we got where we got and why it matters. And in our case, the fabric of a matriarchal lineage in terms of what I received from my mother's, what Jonathan received from his mother and my mother's. And this idea, not necessarily always of the blood mother, but literally the idea of the passing on of information, of wisdom, and sometimes really hard-won wisdom that we will hope we no longer forget. And I thought we could tune in by just doing a reading from a book that is called The Tao of Painting, and it's from the Chinese tradition. And this is an important book in the life of Su Hui Sellers. This is her book, and this was given to her in 1959. And her teacher before her, Lenore Thomas Strauss, who was a sculptor, a writer, and a printmaker, was very enmeshed in Zen and Eastern traditions in a lot of her approaches to her work. And so she taught her from this idea of the canon of painting. And so I just thought for us to tune in together to just read this section that is underlined by Sue. And it's interesting because I'll read it to you, but she has a little notation in pencil and it says, Great Mother. And I just thought, well, I don't know what that has to do with the Great Mother, but it's just so interesting that it's there. And then just this morning, I listened to a most amazing song from Amber Samaya, which we'll hear again, called Great Mother, and opened this book and found this Great Mother moment. And here we are in a matriarchal moment. So here we are.
Here we are. I'm going to let you do that so you can
fully
express.
I'll
be right over here.
Okay, you be right over there. Okay, so see if you can find the connection with the Great Mother here. But just allow yourselves to relax as you hear this reading from the Tao of Painting. Training in brushwork and in the symbolism embodying the ancient beliefs and concepts was part of the traditional education of a scholar. Up to modern times, the discipline consisted of reading and memorizing, the study of the classics of history, religion, philosophy, and in the process, one learned as a matter of course to write. The preliminary steps required many diligent years and account for two important features of Chinese painting. The first is the close relationship between painting and calligraphy. Painting and calligraphy. In both arts, the same soft, pointed brush is used, with a consequent emphasis on high standards of brushwork. The second feature is the traditional view that painting is not a profession, but an extension of the art of living. Painting is not a profession, but an extension of the art of living. For the practice of the Tao of painting is part of the traditional Tao of conduct and thought, and of living in harmony with the law of the Tao. Under such circumstances, Chinese painting has usually been an expression of maturity. Most of the great masters first distinguished themselves as scholars, poets, and many were expert calligraphers before they turned to painting. Great Mother, it says. And so this idea of how the Chinese approached painting really influenced Lenore Thomas Strauss's approach because she worked in calligraphy and she worked in image and in word to the degree that she actually printed her own books. This idea of the writing of a mountain or the writing of water was passed to Sue from Lenore, who was determined to pass it to me, an ever wily student. But there we would sit with the calligraphy brush, the traditional bamboo calligraphy brush, as she would teach me and then take me to the Asian Art Museum and then show me the history of ancient writing and painting in many of the traditions around the world. Why I'm bringing this up today is the idea of how you approach image and language factors hugely into our work here at Musea. When we look at the threads of our ancestry, we see a common theme of image and language, of painting and story, of vision and mother tongue. And as we go forward into our future, one of the things we're going to be focusing on together is the stories that go along with whatever art it is that gets created. And then as I begin to bring that framework inspired by the Chinese tradition that was passed through to this approach of Zen, of being with the art. Now I know that this approach existed in so many different cultures. In fact, intentional creativity, this mindful approach, existed in all traditions around the world. And as long as we were able to pass on the cultural traditions from each of our clans or tribes or families, then the children and the next generations learned how to approach their work in a sacred manner. But I remember the day that Sue Hoya Sellers told me to bring what I loved the most and cared about the most into my clay work. The moment was such a revelation. It's the birth moment of what we work with here, of giving language to this idea. Not that we own the idea or the idea is just ours, the idea belongs to everyone, just that we would be a community and now a museum that used intention, but not just intention, being intentional about intention, and how well that pairs. If you look to the ancestors in any of the lands where you live, you will find, if you look back far enough, that almost all of your ancestors worked with a kind of mindfulness and approach to making that was a way of life, the art of living. And in our community, we're saying, you know what, we're going to be called back to that. We're going to look at that in our own life and culture now that we're creating. We're going to look at it in our own matriarchal lineages, each one of us and our families. Maybe how far back do we need to go? And we're going to let that be a practice with us here as we so consciously honor the ancestors and the different traditions that have inspired and kept alive the idea of how we approach our work as sacred. And to read this part again, painting is not a profession, but an extension of the art of living. And when we think of musea, it's not just a business, it's not just a building, it's not just a concept. It's an extension of the art of living that is shared by all of us. So I wanted to start with that reading to just welcome you into this space and also just give so honor to the Asian art traditions that have so shaped so many of us, and to call each one of you to begin to look at your life, your art, your way of living with that level of awareness. And with that, I'm going to bring up one of the first show and tell items. I'll be right back. This is called The Autobiography of a Stone Carving. And I love that. It's not the stone carver, but the stone carving itself. Now, this is a book by Lenore Thomas Strauss called Stone Dust. And she made this. She had her own press. And there are many different editions of her two books. Can you imagine in the 1950s creating a book like this and printing it yourself? And I will read just a little bit, but I wanted to show you a picture. This edition is so, can you turn off that fan for a moment? Should have on white gloves. This edition has actually signed, hand-numbered lithographs inside, hand pasted into the book. And you can see that image. And I will read. Oh, let me show you this one too. This is The Stone Must Weep. So you can just think of that approach. Here is one of the readings, and Lenore really used her art to be with her life as a woman carver in the 1930s and being in an industry that was not completely, but almost 100% men, and often was removed from job sites as a result of being a woman. So she did have her own version of pain of being an artist, and when she met Sue, she saw another struggling young artist. So this is about pain. Can pain be transmitted to the stone through the hammer's blow? Can joy be absorbed in rock to sound in stillness? Can pain be transmitted to the stone through hammer's blow? Can joy be absorbed in rock to sound in stillness? These words are tears that fall from stone, that juice of anguish that is transmuted from rolling silence to shape of rock. They do not simply drop from aching eyes, forced by sobs to flow in fluid purity. This is too soft. The stone must weep. And this is before she really got really studied in the Zendo. And that was much later in her life. But you can see she's already asking. She says, to touch in darkness, how find to touch? Blindly groping to grasp my human counterpart, the spark of touching is withheld. In this great flow of men and women, each proudly involuted in each microscopic selfhood, how touch another? How bravely reach through the dark of isolation for the spark of touching? How step outside of time, rigid, teasing, life-defeating time to touch another? It is more unique than the miracle of creation. And so here we have these ideas of the artist's relationship with her humanity as it is transmitted into stone. And those of you who've been studying with me and intentional creativity will know that idea of the pain being transmitted to the stone and the joy being absorbed by the stone is such a concept that we work with here as a way to create a kind of transference, a way to heal, a way to be human. So that is these are the opening readings, and we are going to have one more share from Jonathan, and then we're going to have a song. And I thought before we show Jonathan's mom's work, I thought, Jonathan, we could just talk about for a moment, before my mom and Sue walked on into the future, and also Carmen Baraka and Mary Gibbons Landor.
Yeah.
You agreed to be a steward in this matriarchal lineage of stewarding these art and these stories. So I'm just wondering if you would share with us what arises for you as you think about this stewardship that we're having right now.
Well, it's a question that comes up from time to time because when either in a virtual environment or in a real environment, in an in-person environment, and many, many times I get asked, so where are the other guys? I'm like, yeah, you're looking at them. And so I might not have normally chosen to weigh in or be a part of or contribute something like this because I didn't know it was here. Mm-hmm. Right? I didn't know how it affected everyone. I didn't know how it affected me. I didn't know how I could possibly approach interacting with it. I had no access. I had no awareness. I had no access. And so as my awareness began to evolve, and literally just by being exposed to the work and to the people, right? So Sue is an extraordinarily powerful character, right? And Mama Karen was a very extraordinary, powerful character. My mother was a powerful character, and the women in our family. And then, of course, I happen to be married to one of those as well. And all really cut from the same cloth. And so when that became for me in the course of our relationship, in my life as an artist and in my life as a person, over time, I've traveled all over the world. I've been to every art museum of note on the planet. And when I walked into this environment, I went, what's this? Mm. This is whoa, wait a minute. What is this? And so this is kind of like part A. Part A is the actual education in the fact that not only now I'm trying not to make my head really big next to your head.
I just want to make sure they can hear you.
Yeah, okay. and I'll stand over here. I'll put the thing up a little bit, something. Okay. So anyway, not only is there a technical component, meaning the art, right? The art, and the people who were creating and performing the art, and the reason that they were doing so was extraordinarily compelling. Well, all right, well, what does this have to do with me, really? Well, what I began to realize is that each and every single component of this transcends the person doing it and transcends the moment it's being done for a created possible future that no one could ever pretend to know what will happen. And so I recently told this, as a matter of fact, I told this to 3 people today that were here. They said, so here you are, surrounded by portraits of the divine feminine, of femininity, of the expression of everything that is done in the way that it's done here, generally speaking. And how's that land with you, being a man and that sort of stuff in this environment? And my response remains the same, which is my entire life has been as a service provider and a caregiver, basically, and not a caregiver in the traditional sense, but a person of hospitality and of service. And so my whole professional career, both in the hospitality business and in the military, was recognizing those who are in distress and trying to relieve that in some way. And so here I am looking at a narrative through the eyes of the women that I love around me and seeing that, in fact, what they say is true, both energetically and literally, that women and children, women and families are the single most enslaved, disempowered, disenfranchised, enslaved, and broken group, if you will, that has historically ever been. And so why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be honorable? Why wouldn't it be noble, if you will, however you revere or view those? Wouldn't it be a really interesting and great idea if I could just hold my place here and just say, actually, there's a man that can stand for that can defend that. I'm a defender. I defend people. I have defended people. Even though I was in the military, I was rarely an aggressor, right? I was a defender. And so, even though sometimes that comes with both. But wouldn't it be wonderful if I could do that? And then as that dialogue continued, especially with people like Sue and with Mom, I realized that they weren't making me wrong for doing that. They allowed me to be a man. They allowed me to be in the space at the same time they were in the space, which is sometimes hard and difficult and challenging and not always welcome. It was they weren't going to make me wrong for the sake of my gender or my sex or anything. They or short hair, long hair, any of that stuff. They were just going to allow me to have my station where it was. And my station happens to be one that says this is a meaningful, important, timely, imperative dialogue that needs to happen, and is happening, and it's happening here, it's happening now. And so each and every, I don't want to say victory because it's not really like that. It's not a good evil. But every advancement, every time the balance moves a little bit back towards a paradigm of equity, then there is ease and there is peacefulness and there's love and there's beauty and there's, like, who doesn't want that stuff? I like that stuff. I really dig that stuff, and who doesn't want that stuff, right? So that's kind of like my piece within this matriarchal framework, is to say that I can allow for it, even though I'm a man. And not only can I not only allow for it, not like I'm giving permission or anything, but I can allow for it to be without having to judge it or make it wrong or make it different. I can also defend it. I can also argue for it. And I can also clearly see the benefit of it for our species. And if you go back behind everything, if you go back behind racism, if you go back behind gender issues, if you go back, it's like, the Romans and the Greeks, and you go back, back. It's just a really bad setup between the male and female. And it's a grudge match that hasn't ever finished itself. And when men can't express that in a healthy manner, they're very easily able and willing to express it in an unhealthy manner, which is how we got in this mess.
I mean, it is kind of a mess.
A hot mess.
We're in a hot mess.
We are in a hot
I'm kind of a
mess.
hot mess too, but
This
we're also
is-
in a
well,
hot mess.
It's kind of a hot day today. But the idea here is that this is something that needs to become part of a dialogue that'll allow all of us to find better equity and balance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are new to our community or considering joining us, we call it the fabric of a matriarchal lineage because we learned it from our mom. It's not some big against men or anti-patriarchy stand. It's actually like, hey, these are our moms. This is what they passed to us. But it becomes more than about the mom, because it actually becomes how you end up sharing it with others who are not part of your family. And that's the story of who Lenore was for Sue, who ended up being my other mother with my mom, Karen. She actually taught her all the mediums. Like in the book I read you, it's like to be a poet, to be a scholar, to be a calligrapher. And then they brought it to stone, and to wood, and to metal, and to clay, and to paint, and to pen. I mean, all those mediums was like the rounded outness. And Lenore actually gave all of that to Sue. And then Sue then gave all of that to many of us. And then many of us, those who are studying in intentional creativity, then give that out. So if you can imagine that, even by maybe 14 years ago, there had already been 100,000 people who had viewed our gallery virtually. That's a long time ago in that age. We have not only reached millions of people, but our graduates are teaching tens of thousands of people on a regular basis. And so you can imagine that through this passing on of a gift, in the case of Lenore and Sue, not blood, but then giving it. And then in the case of my grandmother, Eden, and my mother, that my grandmother, of course, gave it to my mother and her son, my Uncle Bobby, who gave it to his kids. And my mom gave it to me and my sister and my brother. And then my Aunt Janet, also such a huge part of our family and our museum, had her gifts, and then also worked with Sue on some of her gifts, and is an incredible Tai Chi Sifu, and also a sculptor. We'll be sharing some of her work as well. And she passed that to her daughter Bridget, and who passed it to her children, Maya and Ezekiel. So there's like the blood passing on, but also there's this tradition within all of those sets for us of taking people in. And we do it a little bit differently here. We are not coming to live at our house. But in the old times, my family would have
It's
people,
been known to be done.
it has happened
It has
sometimes.
happened.
That the people would actually come and live at our family's home. However humble we would be, they would actually come there and they would work the land, but then they would also receive the gift of art, and actually to work at the art was a part of it. And Sue had a little bit of elitism around, like, if you're not willing to do art, we just don't really have any conversation to have. Like, take what you need and get on the way, because we have things to do here. And so this idea of passing on the gift is a huge part of what we have in the ethos here at Musea, and the concept that Jonathan arrived at, that we share with you, which is that every place intentional creativity is spoken and practiced, that is a musea. So it carries on the idea of the passing on, and that goes back to mitochondrial DNA, that the mitochondria is passed from mother to daughter, and it doesn't pass from the sons to the daughters and sons. And we're relating that sort of metaphorically to information, to pass on information, and a legacy of an approach to art that, as in the Chinese tradition, in the arts of India and the arts of Africa, like all over the world, they all did this in their own way. They didn't call it intentional creativity. We're just calling it that so that we could return to this kind of sanity of caring about what you make, putting your love into what you make, and say, in this community, in this museum, we're going to pay attention to this and we're going to see what happens. And so with that, we're going to invite Lavender Grace, who's my childhood friend, and who we've sung together many times, and she's sung with my mom and for my mom and for Sue and Carmen, and to sing a song that she wrote. I'll let her tell you what it's about, but the spirit of this moment is to be with this idea of the echoing of information, the passing on of story and of information, and for each of you who are here to let this be kind of a ritual of being with the idea of the sharing of the wisdom, and the wisdom that won't be lost. So welcome, Lavender.
Hi, thank you. Good to see you. Yes, this song came to me several months ago in a way just when I needed it. It was there's a kind of a break in the lineage of my mother as she was adopted, and so there's a heartbreak there that we don't know. And I was guided by a dear friend into a place where I actually heard my great 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 grandmother sing to me, and it burst my entire soul open, and I just started sobbing, knowing that I was that loved and cared for before I was even a concept, and before I was ever born, that I was so loved and held. And so this song is that medicine. And I hope that you can also hear the echoes of your ancestors and all of the lineage that you come from, and all the shoulders that you stand upon, and all those ancestors that wished you well and love and beauty and hope in these times. So this song is called Echo. I hear your song. I hear your song. I hear your song. I hear your song. Echo of an echo of an echo of an echo. I hear your song. Mother of my mother, of my mother, of my mother, I hear your song. Fill my heart with love. Fill my heart with love. I hear your song. Fill my heart with love. I hear your song. I hear your song. I song. I hear your song. Sister of my sister, of my sister, of my sister, I hear your song. Fill my heart with joy. You fill my heart with joy. I hear your song. I hear your song. Echo of an echo of an echo of an echo. I hear your song. Echo of an echo of an echo of an echo. I hear your song. Ooh, I hear your song. Fill my heart with love. You fill my heart with love. I hear your song. I hear your song.
Lavender, thank you so much. It's so beautiful to hear it and to meditate on that meaning for us today. Thank you so much.
You.
We are so grateful for you, and we're so happy to be a part of the Be Bold Alliance with you. We are pollinator protectors here at Musea.
Thank you.
We have 6 beehives, and I went out. I should take this out there and be like, look, we're cool. We're cool. You can hang out here.
Well,
thank
thank
you
you
so
so much. Love you, and I
Love you.
will see you soon. I love everyone here. I'm gonna go do a little mama time and go get my girl, so I won't be able to be with you for the rest of the.
Thanks for being with us and for
Yes.
bringing that idea of the echo. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Lavender and I used to ride the school bus together. We say we have gypsies for mothers and pirates for fathers, and we are similar age, and so we've walked in some of the same terrain and chewed some of the same dirt. That's a term from you, chewed some of the same dirt.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but in West Virginia we did that.
Yeah, you actually chew the dirt.
Yeah.
With that, I would love to invite up also a mutual friend of Lavender, but the most amazing friend and colleague and teacher, Mary MacDonald, Stella Mac. Woohoo! Hi, Mary.
Hi, darlings. I'm so excited to be here, even though I want to be there.
Oh, we miss you so much. This is Mary and I have been together almost 20 years working together, and this is the longest time we've ever had apart. So
that is a very festive outfit for the Great White North in Canada there.
Hey, I'm at the museum show, baby.
That's
I gotta be sparky.
Right on. Beautiful. Wonderful. So
And I actually got this in Hawaii when we were there for our graduation.
Oh, I wanted to bring this. I brought this as a show and tell today. This is Stella Mac and Jenna Owen and myself. around about 10 years ago. So this is part of our museum today to share this, because without the two of them, we wouldn't have lasted this long, you know? So friendship is such a huge part of what makes this all work. So Stelmack is going to ask us a few questions before we go on to the show and tell.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment before I ask you questions. You know, Jonathan, when you were talking, when Jonathan came into our world, Shiloh brought a man into our world, and Sue and I were, you know, staunch, raving feminists. So he had a little bit of
not
a bridge
happy.
to
They
get
were
across.
not happy. Not really. No, not that happy at all. No.
But I remember it was the very first time that Jonathan was there and he was going to film. And Shiloh and I went up to him, was talking to him about, you know, from the female perspective and creativity and being, you know, that we were there for women. And Jonathan just kind of looked at, and he had this kind of, I thought it was like an angry, like he was like pissed off at me, right? So I just thought, oh, I'm just going to walk away, right? And Jonathan walks up to me and he said, I need you to know that whatever expression you saw on my face, it was because you and Shiloh were talking and I didn't know what the hell you were talking about. And it must have took, I call Jonathan my human Google. So it took him about an hour and a half to get what we were talking about. And so, and here you are, as you have been here for all of us and for Shiloh and your wisdom and
Good thank.
yeah. So, so to the questions. Shiloh, I know that you were raised in an environment of the feminine, right? With Sue, your mom, Alice Walker, or Stein, all of those people, right? So from a very young age, that was part of who you were. Did you want to rebel about that?
Oh, against the feminism?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I did for a long time. That's why I wanted to grow up to be a judge so that I could mete out justice. You know, that was really what I thought. And I really thought, you know, when I was like 5 and 6, I thought they were being really unfair to men. And we had men in our family. But, you know, I can remember the moments where Sue was explaining to me why it was important to have women identified spaces. And she said, I mean, I'm like, I don't know how old I was. I was little. And I'm like, da da da, we should be my brother, my father, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you know, every place in the world, it's assumed that that barn, that sculpture, that fence, that electricity, that food is grown by a man. It's just the assumption. It's the status quo. And where we are, the spaces we're creating, we have eliminated that question. Just here. And every other place in the world, almost, that's still the assumption. So can it be okay with you, she says, for there to be a place where we just focus on the arts of women? Would that be all right? And I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense to me, actually. I understood then. And I definitely think there were moments of rebellion, but there was so much logic, I would say, to the early feminism of, and I say early because it's different now. There's a different dialogue happening now, but just that early feminism of focusing on equality, focusing on justice and equal rights and civil rights, is like, it's just so obvious once you know what it is. And then when you realize it's not happening, you're just pissed. And so I sort of went from like, oh, okay, and then just like, wow, we got to change this. And so, yeah, I definitely had moments of wanting something else, but it was actually so logical to choose justice.
Well, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about that's how Legend was born, right? The course that we do, right, is that bringing that from the micro to the macro.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you both, because when you were reading something that Lenore had written about, and I'm going to paraphrase this really badly, about does the stone feel the pain?
Mm-hmm.
right?
Transmitted. Mm-hmm.
So both of you are artists on multiple levels, right? Whether it's painting, whether it's words, whether it's photography, right? And do you think that, how does that transfer with each of the mediums? Do you think it's as, um, I don't know if easy is the word I want to use, but to put that pain, to put that joy, to put those emotions into each of those elements
Mm.
or each of
Well,
those um, ways of creating?
yeah, I know that the mediums all take the impact of the pain and the joy differently based on the actual literalness of the medium. But the idea of the transmitted, I'm going to let Jonathan speak to because he has a really powerful idea about the charge that artists create in their work. Do you want to speak to that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Kind of.
Okay, so the discharge
Yes.
of the
Yeah,
energy.
that's what I thought you were talking about.
Okay.
So you brought up an interesting point, which I had not thought about it being different based on different mediums, because in my world it doesn't matter what kind of medium it is. So the answer to your question is yes. Now here I'll explain that. Yes. So if you think about the way art is created, and especially intentional art, you realize that it's an extraordinarily greater amount, like to a magnitude of order, than the sum of its parts. So it's not about paint or a brush or about canvas. It's about all those things, and those are just subsets of the entire expression, which is in fact a movement of energy. So when you have a thought, there are quantum mechanical principles at work that cause thought, that cause electromagnetic interactions between neurons, which then cascade to create an ideation that ends up as an attitude, which ends up into a behavior. So this energetic state, an emotion such as pain or joy or fear or jubilation or victory or any of these other things, anything in the constellation of emotion that the intentional creative person wants to put into it, those things are not only being transmitted from a electromechanical standpoint, meaning the actual creation of whatever it is in whatever medium that you're using, but also an energetic signature. And that energetic signature comes from the energetic signature that's followed it all the way out the end of the brush and onto the canvas. And so what I think that statement about pain being transmitted to the stone via the hammer, it caught me because it's like, who's hurting? The stone being hit with a hammer, because that sounds like it hurts, but maybe not for a rock. But is it the pain of the artist, or is it the pain of the stone, or is there a relationship? Aha! And that's what I think that really is about relationship. And so this energetic movement from energy to matter out the end of your paintbrush or your canvas or your chisel or whatever, or your hammer, whatever you're working with, that energetic signature is a testament to the relationship that you're in with the thing that is being intentionally made, using that energy as its force.
Well, Jonathan, I'll have to interview you for an hour about that because it's fascinating. And I love the idea about it being a relationship, because I think everything is relationship. And I think that's what intentional creativity is, right? So that when you do the painting with intention, is that what you feel, Shiloh, is happening? Is that you're having that relationship, so that allows our inner voice, our inner wisdom to show herself?
Yeah, and I feel like that word is so important, transmitted or transmission. There's something about it that's just so powerful because it suggests that we are capable of making a state change. That we're not just stuck with how it exists. And so those of us who've been through trauma, and who hasn't, right? We try a lot of stuff to try to get through it. Clearings and healings and journeys and just therapies, and we really try hard. And I think a lot of us are like, wow, we're trying really hard and it still in my body are still in my field. And I think it's that sort of stuckness of how that functions, even after years of working on it, that kind of started to really baffle me and really wanted to work on how that could be shifted. I was concerned about all the healing work, all the money, all the time, all the investment, and the resulting disappointment at not being able to move it more. And that's when Sue and I got more
We still
into.
have that, by the way.
Huh?
I think we still have that.
Have what?
That we're not further down the path.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so Sue and I really got into, because Sue was a biological illustrator and really worked heavily with like just the body and the energetic field from a real scientific perspective.
Mhm.
And so she would often explain things from a brain or a somatic or a synaptic junction perspective of like, well, when we keep making the shape with the brush, eventually our body knows the shape of water because the synaptic junctions are built right here in your arms and it goes like this. And it's like, well, that's why it works, or what, you know. So kind of really diving into that awareness and then really starting to get more intentional about, let's see, could I actually identify in my body, in my field, a particular trauma, memory, or image? Because that's one of the reasons why it's hard to move it, is because it lives in image. And the technologies which work with image shifting memories is not sufficiently developed in our humanity yet, in my view. And so in order to shift an image, I think you might need to work with image, almost like an antidote idea. So we started just really practicing. What about this? And so this idea of being able to speak in an invocation to the body and field and say, hey, everybody, you know that particular story that just keeps recurring, that nightmare, that felt sensation, I really want to move that. And I would like my entire system to support me as I spend these 20 to 40 hours on this painting as a ritual to move that story someplace other than where it is. And we believe from a scientific perspective, it can't stay the same. It can't stay the same. You've just called it into awareness. It is always listening. And now you're making this action toward this change. And then part of our work with metacognition is to note that you're doing it. Wow, I feel different in my body. Wow, I haven't had that nightmare for 2 months now. Wow, suddenly that I feel disconnected from that being such a big hook. Like, so the metacognition of like noting these tiny little revelatory transmissions. And then I believe that the painting or the work of art actually carries a charge. And that may be a little Northern California woo. But then if you think of places like the Great Pyramids or Stonehenge or other places where sacred sites, how did those sites get sacred? Would it just pop up sacred? Did humans make them sacred? It's both. It's our attention to that sacred space. It's the space itself. It's the inherent nature of the thing, the stone, the ground, the sky, the space, but it's also all the people with their talismanic energy creating that as a space. And so the painting or the sculpture functions in that same way. And as Lenore was working, she started feeling that and getting into that and noting that and then looking for evidence of that in spirituality, which then led her on kind of a Zen path, right? Like, oh yeah, how I be with this matters. And then being, being a woman at that time, imagine this, she's over 6 feet tall, I think. I
think she was 6'4".
Stately woman, short cropped hair, white overalls, hammer drill, electric tools.
Oh, she had level shoulders. I mean, it's like head, shoulders.
Yeah.
Like,
and these giant sculptures. This was not done at the time. And so she dealt with a lot of all kinds of opposition, including within her own family. They really resented, in many cases, when your mom is busy, she's out there doing her work. And so I feel like Lenore actually transmitted a lot of her own creative suffering into the transformation of the pieces. And if you see like the mother and child that's in the square of Greenbelt, Maryland, it's a mother giving this water to this child. And it's this act of absolute necessity and also generosity. And it's just huge. It's like 4 or 5 times my size, you know?
I think I can close this one also, Mary, by saying that 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 whatever it is that you're creating with intention becomes a container, and this container, regardless of what it is a field, and it's a container, and this within which this container within which everything that you're moving towards it, intentionally, energetically, dimensionally, full 3 dimension. You're working not only with if you're working with a painting, you're working with height, you're working with width, and you're actually working with depth too, because every time you press the brush to the canvas, it presses in. So it's about pressure as well. So you're working in a 3-dimensional space, and you're imbuing it with intention and energy, and it as a container is a record of that. And Leonardo da Vinci referred to this as the inscrive, right, which is like the writing down of. And in the mind, in Da Vinci's anatomical mindset, he thought that once the information came in through your senses, was judged for what it was, okay, that is a dog or whatever that is, and it passes, the imprensiva passes that to your mind. And if it's important enough, if it's meaningful enough, if it has enough mass, body, weight, importance, then your mind literally writes it down, which Da Vinci called the inscrive. So not everything gets written down. I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, unless I try really hard, but I can certainly remember many other things. And so those are things that got written down. And this testament, this memorial, this artifact has been created with the energy that you've moved into it. And every time you look at it, let's say, oh, that's my favorite song, or that's my favorite painting. Well, when you look at it, it feeds that right back to you. It feeds the energy right back to you. And for the moment, you're like, I remember the first time I saw that, or the first time I heard that, or the first time I tasted that. You go, and all that stuff. You can taste it again. You can smell it. You remember all the stuff. And that fluid amount of time, space, energy, all that is a testament of the power of that artifact that you've made.
Wow. This is like our favorite topic around here, I think.
I miss those cafe days.
I was going to show you this one, which I think just really, really summarizes it. And it's called Quietly I Bow to This Stone. I know you can't really see the fullness of it, but she's in a prayer position. And her family is from Lofoten, Norway. And so she was making, we talk in Intentional Creativity about honoring, where you live. We're in the land of the coastal Miwok, but also honoring where you came from, to look back. And I know not everyone wants to do that, and if you don't, that's okay. But I'm just saying that Lenore did. She actually was born here, but her parents were from Lofoten, Norway, and she actually traveled back and brought a giant sculpture that's in Norway today. It's called the Fisherman's Wife. And some community members have made a pilgrimage. In fact, we can share that with you when we send the recording. Grace Steenberg has made a pilgrimage bringing water from Sue's lineage land to there, and water from there here. And so this idea of how, like, the significance of bringing that stone, which had carried that family story, and her inquiry into her family and her inquiry into who she was, to bring it all the way back home. These are symbolic acts that are actually really so very real. So,
well, thank you both so much. I love you both. I miss you. I can't wait to see all of the art. I'm just looking at your mama's piece there that I think of as being really big, but next to your huge canvas, it looks so tiny.
It's big. It's big enough. See, look, it's still big.
That's true.
Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you for joining us here.
Oh, it's my joy, obviously, yes.
So we're going to go into sharing a few of the items that we brought for show and tell. And of course, first, here's this painting of my mother's. It's based on Shekinah from the Kabbalistic Jewish tradition. And that's my little mommy. See, she's like right there, little tiny, jumping up to the great mother. And I think mom called it Shekinah shakes out the seasons because there's her trees. So we wanted that to be a backdrop. And Jonathan, why don't you show a couple photographs of your moms before we go on to sharing a few more of the pieces?
Okay. So my mother was by profession a surgical nurse, and so thank you. So she was by profession a surgical nurse, and grew up in rural West Virginia, at about 8 miles on a farm about 8 miles, which is where I was born. A farm about 8 miles outside of the nearest village, which had a whopping 450 people in it, give or take. Now it has about 390 people in it, give or take, which are all the people that I grew up with that didn't reach escape velocity like I did and had families and lives and things there. So she was one of 9 brothers and sisters. And as you can imagine, they were dairy farmers. And so they worked hard. They knew work. These people knew work. And they had a very interesting life, though, because all the boys went off to the military, except for one, and then came back and actually made their lives in and around that area as farmers on their farm or other farming. And then all the girls, there were 4 girls, and the girls all of them ended up becoming college educated under their own steam, like they paid their own ways through college. And as it turns out, a couple of them came back too, and they ran basically my whole education as a kid. So my aunt was we only had 3 schools in the whole school district. We had the elementary, we had the middle school, and we had the high school. That's it. And my aunt was the art teacher for the whole school system. My uncle was the music instructor for the whole school system. My other aunt was the Latin and Greek teacher. So, I couldn't really get away with much at school because my relatives were like, And the good news is, and the miracle is even in the 60s and early 70s in rural West Virginia, I got an amazing education. And the first thing that they wanted me to do was to understand that if I joined the military and traveled the world, the things I would encounter and the circumstances and the people that I would encounter. And my mother wanted me to be a doctor desperately. Like by the time I was 14, she was bringing home surgical sets. And instead of harvesting her animals, I was dissecting them and then weeding them. But she was a photographer, and she was stationed in Frankfurt am Main, Germany, from the late 50s until about 1963. And during this time, in the late 50s, Spain was still under the rule of Ferdinand Franco, which was a communist dictatorship. And Americans, for the most part, were prohibited from entering Spain. So my mother was a photographer, and she was adventurous. And so I will show you her picture first, before I show you a couple of images. This is her picture upon graduation from nursing school. This is what she looked like. And so, as you might suspect, she was very easily taken for a German. And she was very fair, very, very fair. And she pretended, in this case, to be a German and went with German tourists into Spain as an American, went into Spain as a German tourist, and traveled all the way past Barcelona to Seville and all the way back, and back then all the way to Frankfurt, Germany on a trip. And along this trip, she took photographs. And she took photographs with a really beat up Leica camera. And turns out it was a really extraordinary camera. And I'll share 2 images with you today. One is from Spain and the other is from Germany. So this first image is a picture that my mother called the melon cellar. And so The melon cellar is these are all black and whites. And this is near Barcelona, Spain in 1959. And they were so impoverished by the communist regime that most of the food that they had involved cabezas or melons. And these are not like watermelons. These are more like almost like giant gourds, like pumpkins. And so this lady is contemplating the life of a person who is selling pumpkins to make their survival. A lot of my mother's photographs were either contemplative or recreational, which is this one. This is one of my favorites. This is a photograph of the ice follies at a place in Bavaria called Garmisch-Partenkirchen. And Garmisch-Partenkirchen is still there today. And at this time, it was a recreation, almost like a Disneyland, if you will, for Germans and also for Americans that were stationed in southern Germany and northern Austria, because it's very close to the Austrian border up in the mountains near where, you know, the model for the Cinderella castle, you know, is there, that Walt Disney took that from. But that's in Garmisch-Partenkirchen. And so this is a photograph of the ice dancers at the ice capades in Garmisch. And so she never really had the opportunity to fully live her life art. She had a life work, which was to be a surgical nurse. My father passed away when I was 12, and so then she had to double down, because now she had to get the co-op to run the farm. She had to work her full-time job. She had 2 kids that were in school, so now we're both latchkey kids, right? And it got harder instead of easier. And so
She's heroic.
she has an extraordinary pattern of artistic beauty and technical prowess in modern surgical nursing, which is, you know, scalpels and forceps and you name it, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So she was technically very smart and artistically very developed.
Yeah.
And there are many photos like that, and I really appreciate you taking a minute to have a look at them. And she encouraged me to do the same.
So shout out to our ancestor, Irma Jean Lewis.
There it
we
is.
are grateful for you and for bringing Jonathan to us. I noticed we keep saying mom, 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 but my mom's Karen McCloud. His mom is Irma Jean Lewis.
Yeah, when I was saying mom before, I meant actually her mom.
Yeah, when he was saying mom before.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. I think there's an item in the other room we might like to share. Okay, so I'm going to share a couple of other pieces with you of the permanent collection. And one I'm going to share that we just got today, actually, which is a book by Alice Walker called Taking the Arrow Out of the Heart. It's a signed first edition. And it was brought to us today, and she signed it in our presence. And so in addition to, you know, we've been talking about image and text, but so here it is to Jonathan and Shiloh, signed today. And because the library is something that is also extremely important to this work and to any museum's work, and that was something that all the women in my family always talked about, a library where women could be. And then we have this really funny thing that we've never been able to tell you about unless you came here. This is a chair.
A chair.
A chair.
Not, it is, notice, it is a chair.
It's a chair.
It is in fact a chair.
So this is a funny story because Alice Walker and, that's fine, I think they've seen the red chair.
Red chair.
And Sue we were neighbors. And so I got to be raised with these amazing and radical women. And Alice wrote The Color Purple part of the time in Anderson Valley when she first moved there, and they were just living in a little house, and her desk was made of boards, and this was her chair. Now here's the funny thing is that she was getting rid of it. She's not as sentimental as some of us. And Sue was like, I think I'm going to take that for Shiloh. And so we'd like to joke that this is the first official museum thing, is this chair that Alice Walker wrote The Color Purple in. However, Since that time, I've sent her photos of it, just confirming the story. And she's like, no, I don't recognize it. So then today, when she came to view my show, Kinship with Creation, and the permanent collection, and have a meal with Jonathan, we didn't have it out when she first got here, and then we brought it out, and she recognized the chair, and we confirmed this is the chair. So that's the story of the chair.
It's the chair.
And Sue felt like it was really important for me to
Give me 50 cents, I'll let you sit on it.
thought it was really, you're such a goofball. Thought it was really important for us to know and care for this chair. So that's part of the permanent collection. There's so many things like that that are just sort of like, why would this be important, but that are. So this book and that chair go together. And we had a wonderful meal. And then I'm going to show something of mine. This is a piece of mine called Mother is the Creator of Life. And this is from 1995. And this is 2 different kinds of clay. And this is one of the first sculptures that I ever made with Sue. So that's that line that you may see me use so many times. So that's definitely, throughout my life, I've sold most of my pieces, but this one we held back. So that's part of it. And the red part was made with clay from Curator Sophia. So this is a bowl that I made same time with clay from Curator Sophia. And it has stars inside. So this is also part of the collection. I'd love to share this beautiful, this is called the Mermaid Goblet. And this is by my aunt, Janet Seaforth. And this is number 7 of 100. And so this is an incredible piece. We also have a few originals of hers, and she's an artist and a poet, and like I said, a Tai Chi Sifu. She has a White Cloud Women's Tai Chi school, and she also studied with Sue, but is an artist in and of her own right on every level. So this is the Mermaid Goblet. Look at that inside. Isn't that just so exquisite? Janet Seaforth. Janet and Sue worked together, collaborating on a few pieces. This is the Feminine Pharaoh, another goblet. This is 1970, the year I was born. Look at those lines. Is that just exquisite? This is an original. Isn't that just, I mean, the beauty of that. So, and that's a collaboration. And that's important too, because in my family, there's a lot of collaboration of different levels of gifts. This is another collaboration between the 2 of them. It makes me nervous to even hold these. They both assigned the bottom of it. This is from 1982. Their studio at the time was called Gaia Wood Studios. They were very studied in the art of ancient Egypt and the female pharaohs, and Sue often sculpted and drew the larger, more ancient head shape. But again, just look at the beauty of the face and the shape and the clay patina. So this is, again, a collaboration between Sue and Janet. This is a cup that Sue made for me, and it's a perfect example of intentional creativity because she said, you know, every time you drink out of this, you'll taste the land and remember me. And that was 95, so I was 25 years old. She also made these Paleolithic style cups with totems on them, and we have a collection of these for when you come to visit. It was an interesting day for stories too. Alice Walker got to see this for the first time. This is the hand of Newt, and this is one of the hands. This is the hand of the sun, and the other hand is the hand of the moon. These are the hands of a huge, how tall, like maybe 14-foot sculpture that Sue created.
with the head, I think it's about 16.
maybe 16 feet tall. And however, ended up working. The piece never made it to Alice Walker's estate, but it belongs to Alice Walker's estate and it's here. And she had never seen all the pieces because her and Sue always felt like they were going to have all the time in the world. But these are these hands, and it's interesting too because these hands were sculpted after drawings that Sue did of my mom's hands when my mom was pregnant with me, and drawings and photographs of Alice's hands. So it's like the hand in this is those two women. So those are some pieces. And are you liking this? Are you loving seeing these different pieces? It's really cool to see it. You'll see more of these another time, but this is a piece by my grandmother. Looks like a beautiful painting at first, but actually it's created by thread. And it's stitched, like everything you see is stitched by hand, as if you're just sewing, but it's a form of embroidering. Isn't that just amazing? So this one she made for me, to Shiloh, who is our special gift with more love than you can know, Grammy Eden. And I would say that Grammy Eden is, I've always really lauded Lenore as really like the foremother of intentional creativity because of her approach and the way that she passed it to someone outside of her family. But then the more that I really got into studying my grandmother, and the way she worked with her work and the way she approached it, it was more like how you would make beauty for your family. But like she made this one specifically for me. And so she would say, every stitch is for you. When she made dresses for me, all that love was woven in. So sometimes there's that, Lenore was working on major pieces for town halls and squares. Grandmother was making images that were for her children and grandchildren. It's all intentional creativity. She was also an herbalist and the healer that people came to be healed. And so she had created at least 30 of these and did have several shows in her lifetime. So much, so much to share with you. And I just wanted to share these pieces with you so that you could get an idea of what this is so much more than me and us and my family and our stories. It's you and yours and your family and your stories, but that we are never going to not tell these stories together. And it feels important for us to claim this territory, to focus, and that each one of you is a part of this. Each one of you is a part of making this change. And we know that those who dominate the history and the museums dominate the narrative with their dominant narrative. And so we're changing that here at Musea. And it feels like starting with the permanent collection is like the seed of that idea. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, this is, we've been going for a while about just, these few pieces. There are hundreds of them, and they're all here. And if you have a chance to come someday, please do, because wow, there's a lot here. And so you never want to get your, you never want to get an art collection because somebody left it to you, really. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I inherited all this stuff. It's like, actually, it would have been easier in some ways not to, right? Because of who we are, we now have this sacred stewardship of these things. And you could say, oh, that's a bunch of pottery, a bunch of paintings, or whatever the case may be. But the curator of the Greenbelt Museum, in thinking about Lenore's work and Sue's work and Shiloh's work, really hit it. And she said, this is enduring, right?
an enduring legacy.
An enduring legacy. And I thought to myself, can I point at something else that's even anything like this, like in any museum I've ever seen. And I mean, can I? Well, let's see, father, son, grandson. No, I, I I couldn't find it. I turned over everything, right? And there are a couple examples of a son being better than the dad, or a mom, or you know, a daughter being better than the mother, or even a widow being in art, and even in the wine world, like with like a instant story is with Veuve Clicquot, right? So Veuve in French means widow, and so there's the the Clicquot family is making wine, making sparkling wines, and the husband dies, and so the wife does not remarry. She continues making sparkling wine, and it's so powerful and important what she does to it. They rename the wine from Domaine Clicquot to Veuve Clicquot because as she becomes the dominant voice of not only the brand but we're talking like hundreds of years ago, right? And she like people came from all over the world to get this wine from her, and so done better by her. And there's a very famous house in Bordeaux that's the same, and it's important for us as a community. This isn't just about the two of us, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
As a community, we need to continue enduring
Mm-hmm.
and persevering in the promotion of the single largest art movement on earth, which is, well, you're soaking in it. You're soaking in it.
So we want you to be a part of it. So we just want to take this moment, and we are going to walk around with the computer and close with some announcements and a song. But we wanted you to feel this, to see this, to know that there's so much more here to this philanthropic work, and that the membership fees that you pay Jonathan and I are 100% volunteer in these positions. We are the philanthropists. We're practicing, we're playing at being philanthropists, and that 100% of the membership goes to our almost 10-woman team, global team of 10 women. And then there are also lots of stewards through the co-curatorship directed by Amber Gould. There's so much here that just your $10 a month makes possible, or if you want to do the next level to join Jonathan and I in the Imprensiva Society. It's not just another, it's not a donation. It's actually so that you feel supported. We're not asking you to just support us. It's not that energy here. The energy is we want you to feel supported and you participate with that. So if you aren't a member yet and you feel like you can afford that investment, we give tens of thousands of dollars of free education away almost every month. It's a pretty epic part of our philanthropy. Everything they receive that's complimentary is something that costs a lot to create. So we love that you're a part of that. We love that we're financing the museum through a member model instead of through the government-funded model, where then we're dependent on them because you're not going to be able to stop us.
And we're also beholden to them, right? Because
Right.
if they come with a big fat check, then they sort of own the joint too, because they get board seats and all kinds of other crazy nonsense.
Also just want to
Don't want that.
acknowledge that we're...
That's how the museums, who only have 2% of women in them, got there.
That's right.
That's how they got there.
I also want to acknowledge that we're one of the museums in the world, I don't know if there are others, I'm sure there are, but maybe, that have a whole membership dedicated to the leadership and exploration of Black, Indigenous, and women of color in the arts. And we'll be having a show with our community next year for that. And so there's so much that's made possible through people like Sumrit Strachan and Lauren Adorno Weatherford and Amber Samaya Gould and Mary MacDonald and Milagros Soriano Rivera and Maya Magdalene Lemon, who is part of our family. She's actually Sue's granddaughter. So whenever you interact with Maya, that's who you're working with. There's Rosie and Uma and Jenna.
You're dealing with.
There's so many. I didn't make a list of everybody's names, but I just wanted to say that all of this is made possible through all of you and through Sarah and Jerry and all of the team that it takes to make this possible. And you're a part of it. And so I want to thank you so much for contributing. I hope you'll become a member and to participate in shows like this, and we'll tell you about the shows coming up in just a moment. We're going to do just a quick tour.
How do you want to do this? You want me to?
We're just going to carry the computer, really,
Okay.
really unofficial, official.
Yeah.
And I think our team is putting up links for membership. Also, you can take a look at our existing exhibits. So we're going to be very informal about this as we just give you a little taste. We're not going to stop, really. It's more of a just a spatial overview that we are a virtual museum, but we are also a physical museum. So let's kind of stroll
Okay,
around,
lift
shall
off
we?
like a drone.
Okay, this is the painting filming studio. All right.
Mm-hmm. The back wall. Go around here.
Alright, so in this room we have the work of Sue
Just
Sellers.
There's
There's
the
the whole room.
operation that makes the whole programming work.
Alright.
Lots of gear. Then,
Sue's work. This is part of the permanent collection, but this is different than the show that you will see coming up.
just a minute. I can't turn the thing too fast or we'll make them sick. There you go. Okay, let's follow Shiloh.
We have some cabinets full of sculptures. Here we have a piece from the collection of Alice Walker's estate. Over here, you will see the Musette Atelier, which is where you will drink your wine that is made from estate fruit by Jonathan. So come and join us. All right. Here are books that I have either written or co-written or did the covers for. All right, prints on wood. And then, oh, this is important down here. These is part of our library. These are the initiate books for Color of Women graduates. When you graduate from one of our training programs, you submit your materials. These are our trademarks for Color of Woman and intentional creativity, so that no one can say we can't use them. In this room, we have the Kinship for Creation with Creation show, and you can kind of get that sense. Ancestor altar and my pieces of the show. So is a sense of the space. Is that cool? So you just kind of get the idea of what's happening.
Why don't you walk over there so they can see how big the room really is. There she goes, way over there.
Wonderful. So thank you for coming to join us at the museum today. It's been great, great, great having you here and just sharing this time with you to give you a sense of Musea and you're part of it and how absolutely integral you are to all of it. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to hand it back over to Amber for announcements and a closing song, and we'll see you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Shiloh and Jonathan. That was a lot of fun. I love that you're wandering around like barefoot mama artist in the background. So we did have Marianne, who is our wonderful Zoom support here, container holder, share some of the upcoming events that are happening with Musea. So we do have the Kinship with Creation Museum tour this Saturday, July 24th. And you'll be able to see some of the items that we just showed, that Shiloh and Jonathan just showed you in the show, because they're on site there. So if you're in the Sonoma area and you're able to get out for the in-person Kinship with Creation Museum tour, that is happening this Saturday, July 24th. And right now we also have a complimentary creativity experience called Insight happening. And you can register right away to get instant access. And there's some dedicated support in the Red Thread Cafe Classroom, which is our Facebook group. So this is happening now. You can start right away, and we're going to have a show and tell circle on July 29th at 3 p.m. And of course, we have really our core intentional creativity course, the one that started it all, the Legend Cosmic Cowgirls painting course that's starting just shy of a couple weeks now on August 1st. And this is also a prerequisite painting course for the Color of Woman 2022 training. So we encourage you to check that out. If you just want to learn more, Marianne has put the link in the chat. And with that, I am going to close us off with a little song. I have been connecting with the matriarchal energies, with the ancestral energies in my own life, and with the Great Mother. And I just recorded a little video that is me drumming and singing to the Great Mother to close us off. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you Shiloh, Sophia, and Jonathan for taking us on this really fun adventure today, and the show and tell and the salon. And thank you Mary MacDonald for holding space and asking some amazing questions. And thank you Lavender Grace for sharing your potent medicine drum song with us. And with that, I'm going to share a song to close us off. Can you all see that?
We can see it.
Thank you.
Take me, take me, take me.
me to the sacred place with you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for listening. And I also would like to honor Lavender Grace again. And this is where you see more of the matriarchal lineage being passed along in our community. But Lavender taught me drumming through the Red Thread training that I took in 2018. And then I did some private drum lessons with her and was so inspired by the way she sang from her heart, from her soul, from her ovaries, and have gotten so much inspiration from her. And she called me forward in voice. So I also want to honor that lineage that's happening right here in this community as well, of women taking up the drum. So thank you, Shiloh, for giving Lavender the chance to sing and me the chance to sing, to bookend this beautiful honoring of matriarchal lineage with women and drum. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's unmute and say our goodbyes and celebrate. Hey, Shiloh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
wonderful. Thank you, Shiloh and Jonathan, so much. Thank you,
Yes.
Jonathan, for
Thank
all you do for the women and for
Thank you.
Shiloh and for
Yep.
the museas all over the world. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Mama Shiloh, for guiding the matriarchal warrior chest. Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
We're so grateful for you.
Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Great. Have
Thank
a beautiful
you.
evening.
Thank you for this beautiful event.
Mhm. Thank you all.
Wonderful.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good morning, and happy tomorrow to the
That's
rest of
right.
you. And tomorrow.
Bye.